Ready to move to the next level in your product career? I'm Shobhit from Intentional Product Manager. Join me as we discuss ways to help you stand out in your job search and your career so you can have more impact and make more money. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Intentional Product Manager podcast. I'm your host Shobhit Chugh, founder of Intentional Product Manager, where we help product managers step into true product leadership and build careers that they're proud of. Now today's guest is someone who I've admired for a long time. Karan Gupta is the CEO of Alice AI, a voice intelligent platform pushing the boundaries of secure enterprise-ready AI. So he's steered teams through IPOs, M&As, acquisitions, and he's building in one of the most exciting frontiers in tech, the intersection of AI, product, and real-world business value. Karan, welcome, and I'm very thrilled to have you on the podcast.
Hey, Shobhit. Thanks for having me on. This is great.
Well, why don't we start with some quick fire icebreakers to get to know you beyond just what it says on your LinkedIn bio? Tell me one book that you think every product leader should read.
I was on a call yesterday. I recommended at least 4 marketing books to that person. There's a few really good ones, but I will name one. But I think a lot of the stuff by Seth Godin, stuff around by Dan Ariely, it teaches you a lot of stuff around like human emotions, human behavior, teaches you about marketing. So I think like not just product managers, but I think most leaders should read those books. One book which I do read probably every year, every couple of years is What They Don't Teach You at Harvard Business School. It's by Mark McCormack. And it's a really great book. It's about old school business. The principles still apply. There's a lot of strategy, and there's like, I don't know, something like 150 case studies shoved into one tiny book. Yeah. The difference is all those case studies are small, just like 3 paragraphs. Gets the point across.
So I know you just came back from a trip from Singapore and you do a lot of work across the world. Tell me one habit that helps you lead across cultures and different continents.
This trip was great, by the way. It's always like a pleasure to work with people and like who have different backgrounds, different cultures. And ultimately you realize, people are just people. People have the same concerns, they have the same responsibilities, for the most part, grown-ups. I think so. I've been able to hire like people all the way across like India, now even Singapore, in Europe, Ukraine, South America, Canada, of course, many parts of the US. One thing I realized is not everyone kind of follows the same schedule. So people have different holidays, different festivals, different things going on in their families, personal life. Um, you have to give room to people to do that, to live their life and like find a way to balance work and life together. So so they have their own harmony, their own rhythm. Um, but that being said, we put some systems in place. So I think that's what we've done. And sometimes those systems are very formal. For example, goal setting sheets, spreadsheets. I know companies use OKRs, and we've typically used like the simplest systems possible, which is like talk to everyone in the same language about what's needed to be achieved and by when, all the way from the senior most role to the junior most role. And then, treat people like they're grown-ups. Like we've given a set of boundaries, a set of guardrails, and now there's a lot of freedom, there's a lot of autonomy. We expect you to deliver your best. We're not going to micromanage you. But people then kind of have to find a balance between all the stuff going on in their particular lifestyle and their particular culture and what's expected by the company. And so you end up having like the same yardstick for everybody, no matter where you are. And so you end up having the same terminology across cultures. People are talking about things in the same way. They're talking about deliverables in the same way. They're talking about timelines in the same way. And if people are in a tough situation, they're able to say that, okay, this is on my goals, and so I have to deliver this, and so on. So like that's just one example of a system. But I think those are the kinds of things that have helped us for sure.
It's something so top of mind. Everybody talks about global think, but it's great to see the learnings from a real world experience that you're bringing in.
That being said, I got to mention something. I love being with people in the same room. Like there's that level of energy. You cannot get working completely remote all the time. So, one way when people are all like remote and spread out is have at least one, if not 2 or 3 occasions in the year where everybody can meet and get together or at least partial groups. Because those connections you make over like, 1 week period, they really give you the energy to go through many months of being in a remote location. So I think that if you're going to be remote, not spend on an office and be all distributed, I think you have to park aside some funds for these get-togethers.
Yeah, one of my managers like highly advised that early on, when you start working with the team, make sure you meet them in person. That would be totally beneficial. Let's talk about one more topic. What is one way you personally use AI every single day?
What do I not use it for? I use it for a lot of things. Sometimes it's like my chief of staff, all the way to sometimes I'm literally just asking for recipes for pastas, you know. And by the way, on that, I kind of went down that hole of using it to give me recipes because trying to use a recipe website these days is a total nightmare. The number of ads just mean you can't really use it. Anyway, so but besides that, for work, a lot of things, like just the other day, there was a very long news article which I use Claude most of the time, and I use Claude to just digest and, so to something that I can like absorb in a few bullet points. Um, I rarely use it to generate content for me. Yeah, I mean because most of the time it generates so much verbose content that I have to like strip it down anyway. But I might give it something and say, okay, like clean it up or like shrink it, make it better, something like that. Versus just like giving a straight shot, give me XYZ document. I don't really do that. And then coding. I mean, it's a game changer when it comes to coding. My company uses AI for coding. Like everybody has an AI software engineer.
I mean, it's sort of like very interesting that you say that you're not using it for the use case that most people kind of love to use it, and many of the opposite ones synthesizing it, many things, and using it that way.
I think what I realize is I try to write as little as possible. Like just use a few bullet points to get the point across. And AI tends to write a lot. Even if you change the filters and stuff, it tends to just be overly formal.
Let's now transition. Let's start to talk a bit about your career because it's really fascinating, like, all the way from Sony to Alice AI. So you've also been part of two IPO journeys. You founded your company. Tell me what first drew you into product and engineering leadership in the first place?
I remember the technology bug. I was still pretty young, maybe eighth grade or something like that. And I was going towards bio on my way towards medicine. Definitely very attractive to me. And then got introduced to computers for the first time, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Because the instant gratification of creating something and just seeing it live, you don't get in a lot of careers, right? Like it's, something complex. Then I think the product leadership and the engineering leadership kind of just came organically after that. I got into a couple of companies where we did not have those systems in place around product leadership. And I just found myself naturally trying to fill the void of doing business analysis, trying to understand the market, trying to look at different tools. And then because I was an engineer, I was actually able to connect what I was finding, like business needs, to what we should actually make and what is doable and what the level of effort is and things like that. And so, yeah, the first 2, 3 companies in my career, including Sony, I ended up playing the product role quite a lot.
The entrepreneurial bug, let's talk about that. When did you start to realize that, hey, you're ready to lead companies and you want to start something of your own and not just leading teams?
I think that's been like since a very young age. I started my first company when I was 26 and just like settling down in the US. I did not care that immigration laws or visa laws would disallow it. I just wanted to see if we can make something. And that was my first like real touch with, starting something completely from scratch and seeing it to an exit, a minor exit, but seeing it to an exit. And so, I mean, after that, I think it just became like fun and something that I knew that I could do. And so it just became something that I wasn't afraid of anymore. When I started my next company, we still made a ton of mistakes, but, also knew that, okay, this is something people do around the world all the time. And it's something I enjoy. I enjoy moving fast. I enjoy making decisions. I enjoy connecting with customers directly. And so just kind of naturally fit into the role of, okay, you got to start something to be able to do all of those things.
Have you gone through large companies, scale up, startups? You mentioned some of the things, but like what's been some common threads or things that stayed the same?
You always underestimate how difficult it's going to be. You always underestimate how long it's going to take. And, people are going to be people. They're not going to show up, or they're going to show up in different ways. Or sometimes they're going to be slow. Sometimes they're going to be super excited and just like move faster than you need them to move. Sometimes they're going to be, just go down a rabbit hole because they're just so driven by a particular idea that has caught them, because people are going to be people. I think big or small, no matter how much resources you have in the company, those things are kind of relatively common. Um, End of the day, I think, you have to have a deep focus on the customer. I, I don't follow it as much anymore, but there was a period of time in my career where I used to listen to a lot of Jeff Bezos videos and things that he's spoken about, his leadership principles. And they define it really well with this whole customer obsession as a key, tenet of Amazon. And I think a lot of businesses have it. I don't think it's unique to Amazon, but I think they just defined it so well that it's easy to absorb and easy to follow as a company. Right? So I think as long as you're doing sales, as long as you're focusing on the customer, things are going to be okay.
Let's now come to like the present day. It's like maybe just tell us a story behind Alice.ai.
What's Alice? Alice is a secure voice intelligence company. I started thinking about voice intelligence actually many, many, many years ago. I built the first speech-based product actually in my undergrad. So quite a few years ago. So it's not something that just came new to me or something that was just like in the air and I was like, okay, this is something worth trying because it's kind of hot or something like that. And it basically started with just trying to make a better recorder. I was getting all of these ideas while I was driving long commutes in the Bay Area. I had just sold my company. My brain was suddenly free and I was seeing problems everywhere and I wanted to capture these ideas as I was having them. And I tried to use Apple's voice memos. I tried to use recorders, a whole bunch of these apps that were available. And I always found something lacking. So I thought, you know what, we can just do better. All of these products will look the same. Spoke with a lot of customers. I thought there's got to be something better out there. I don't need to start a company for this. Spoke with journalists, engineers, like sales, lawyers, people in many different fields. I realized like, no, something is missing. So the company actually started just from that idea of, okay, let's make a better recorder. And then let's make it extremely secure so that people can actually talk freely. Because that was something I learned in my customer interviews, that people have access to recorders and recording technology. They've had it for decades, but they don't use it because they're afraid that someone might be listening. That there's a little bit of implied mistrust of the whole ecosystem. Anyway, we started from there, and then as we kept talking to more customers, we realized, you know what, we need to put high accuracy AI. We need to put even more security guardrails. We need to put auto tracking. And it just very naturally became this enterprise voice intelligence company. And so now we have, 2 or 3 products that people across businesses use all the time. And we still keep talking to customers. Some of them we just know by first name. That's what we do.
I just watched a YouTube spoof the other day where a woman goes and tells her husband, hey, I would love to talk about this, but I'm afraid that Alexa might be listening. Her husband laughed, then Siri laughed, then her Tesla laughed.
I mean, someone is listening, right? Like, for sure. I don't think most of these software companies are trying to be malevolent, but I think it's just how companies are wired. Technology just gets built a certain way to track everything that you're doing, to track every behavior, every action, every browser, every device, and then never ever delete that data. It's just wired into how tech companies are built. So we ended up going a very different extreme. We're like, you know what? Can we actually build product without tracking anything, without giving access to any third party? And so we don't use Google Analytics. We don't use any tracking pixels. We don't connect with TikTok or X or anything like that. we use most companies have 80 plus, 100 plus vendors attached to the software. We have like five. And it's been difficult to build that. But now I feel like, okay, we're reaping the rewards because everything is in one system. It's easy to extract information. It's easy to answer questions. It's easier to build products on top of all of this information that we have. And so we end up giving a lot of value to the customer, uh, and the system's easier for us to manage.
You mentioned you started with this interesting insight, but like, tell me more. What are like some of the misconceptions maybe you came across as you start building voice intelligent products? You mentioned one about privacy. Any others?
I mean, there is a certain, I guess, there is a certain assumption that speech to text is everywhere, or like say that you can even do it in Microsoft Teams, for example, that you can record a meeting or something like that. And when we talk to customers who are coming to us, we realize that they tell us, one, even though their company has sanctioned teams and they discuss a lot of things in teams, they're very scared of actually speaking and getting a Teams meeting being recorded. Number two, even if they kind of get over that hump, um, the quality of the transcript is pretty poor, right? And so they're like, okay, we need a better solution if we have to actually use this technology that's available now. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not that difficult to be 80% good, maybe 85% good. It is very, very hard to be 99% good. Crossing that final, making that final leap. Now, that being said, like we have, and the other thing is, um, I think speech to text has been around for years and years. Dictation, Dragon software, like there's nothing, it's not new. It's more about the technology is just becoming more widely available and it's becoming much better, right? I think the real value is how you apply the technology. Just like other technologies that have existed and we applied them. So like databases have existed for a very long time. And when you started building web apps on top of them, suddenly they, grew in popularity, right? Because you need them to maintain state. And so I think that'll happen with speech to text technology is what applications do you have? And so that's what we've done like with our newest product, which is called VoiceBox, which is a feedback inbox for retailers to collect, the voice of the customer. It's very straightforward, extremely simple, works on every device, extremely accurate. And the reason why the intelligence is so good is because the accuracy is so good. So if you're upstream, the quality of the recording is high, the quality of transcribing that is high, everything is secure, then downstream building products becomes easier and better and higher quality.
It seems to be a space where people would just assume, yeah, we've done it like this, both new and at the same time, what's new? But there's so much possibility that I think those are the kind of spaces people miss pretty often. Let's bring it back to trust. You mentioned user privacy and like stuff around that, but this is a completely different ball game, or maybe like bigger issue when you're talking about earning trust with large enterprises. So what's the hardest part of earning trust with large enterprises when building with AI?
I mean, you've probably heard the story about how they chain up baby elephants, and then even when they become really big, they feel like they're still chained, even though they have the strength to just break it and walk away. I think there's a lot of distrust that has been built over the years. And so even though a CIO might say, we're going to use XYZ software, or the entire company will use Microsoft or Google or something, right? And the CIO and the CIO's direct team has done a lot of maybe research on the security aspects of it. I think day-to-day people still have that underlying fear either of the corporation or of big tech, that someone is listening or it's not safe, or if I say something or I type something, it's just going to be there forever. It can be misconstrued. And now there's a new fear that it can be used by AI to publish something in a totally different context, right? And a lot of these fears are unfounded because, like I said, I don't think many of these companies or the product leaders or the technology leaders are trying to be malevolent. They're not. They're people like you and me, right? They're just trying to do a good job. But somehow this does happen. data does get retained forever, data does get abused, data does get leaked, and there are instances of where, ChatGPT is publishing something which it read from somewhere else, right? So, um, so I think the biggest thing again when it comes to like establishing trust is we have to really show these companies and the executives we work with that we are different, and we'll show you how we are different, right? And they have a tough time believing it, and we have to literally talk a lot about our technology and architecture and explain that, right? We have to tell them that we really like build this from the start for companies like you, for companies which really need extreme privacy. One phrase I like to use is like our infrastructure is near air gapped, you know, which means most of our infrastructure has never connected to other third parties on the internet. And so that's how it is. It is safe. I mean, you cannot retrofit privacy. You have to build it from the beginning. And so luckily we did that, thankfully. But we still have to, yeah, keep educating people and really explain to them our reasons and how we started.
Karan, let's now switch a bit and talk about product managers, the topic of the podcast and something everyone's interested in. So I noticed initially a post by you about product managers that really piqued my interest and want to talk about a few different aspects. So you've built organizations on almost every continent, and you've hired product managers for seed stage startups, for post IPO companies. Let's just look at, like, if you were to say the top few signals you look at when you're hiring a product manager today, what would those be?
I think by far the number one thing for me, and I was thinking this morning, is being able to talk to customers. I want to know, as a product leader, when is the last time you spoke with a customer? What did you talk about? How long did you talk? How often do you actually talk to customers? Do you use email? Do you use the phone? What do you do? Right? Do you get on Zoom calls? Do you go visit people? I mean, depending on the nature of the business, right? And there's a couple of other ones. Like of course, I want to make sure that a product leader actually knows KPIs and is able to talk in the language of KPIs and just knows industry terms and things like that, right? But more than that, just actually knows that they have to measure their success, their product success, in terms of real metrics, right? And so when I'm trying to interview people or talking to them about their professional growth, that's what I'm asking, right? Hey, okay, what metric did you move? And sometimes, surprisingly, people don't even remember the metrics. And I'm like, well, you should remember the metrics, right? Just like, I'm not saying remember 25 metrics, just remember two or three key metrics in your career that you know you help move, right? Um, because then that shows that, okay, they are data driven and they are customer driven, right? The other thing, the final thing I guess I look for in everybody, not just product managers, is just have a humility. Just know that even though you're a leader or a manager, you work in a team. Everybody in the team has a role to play, no matter how senior, no matter how junior. And so just have some humility that everyone brings something to the table.
Let's talk about, cool, we talked about hiring. So let's translate that then. When you think of like, okay, you've hired someone, you want to coach them. What's your coaching philosophy and how do you grow those product managers that you've hired?
I mean, most of the time, honestly, what I've seen is people get so caught up in the drama of building a company or building a product that they forget to actually build the product. So this like having too much process has been like one of my pet peeves. I'm like, reduce meetings, reduce the number of steps it takes from we heard this from the customer to okay, now it's delivered, right? Or we saw this in the data, this is the thing we should solve, now it's delivered. Just reduce as many steps as possible. And so when I talk to product managers, when we talk about performance, career growth, that's one of the things we talk about, which is like, kind of like, what are you spending your day on? And if they tell me they're spending their day on, I don't know, six one-on-ones and, writing up two very large documents, I'm like, you're just wasting your day. You don't need to spend so much time doing these things, right? Um, if you're delivering, There's going to be excitement in the team. Customers are going to be happier. The business is going to do better. End of the day, I mean, like, that is the goal. That is why we come to work, right? To have an impact, to bring value to customers, to, bring value to the business. So when people get caught up in all this other like other drama around process and how we do things and like just, cut it out. Put some simple systems in place and then cut out the rest. But it is surprisingly hard, surprisingly hard. And then, sorry, you want to say something? I was just going to say, like, bring back the point. I feel like I'm harping about talking to customers. Like, when did you last talk to a customer? Any medium, I don't care. But talk to customers, and take a couple of engineers with you in that call.
I love both because, like, for me, trying to be the go-between never worked. But, like, when I brought the engineers with me and they had that first-hand experience, like, everybody was energized to do something about it.
Oh yeah, their eyes light up, right? When they hear things directly from the customer, and this might be things that they've been debating about internally for like 2 weeks, right? And then they hear the customer actually say their reasons for wanting a particular feature or needing a particular problem solved.
Let's combine like some of the things we were talking about, AI and product teams. I mentioned earlier, I saw your LinkedIn post, which is about AI won't kill product managers, but it will create more product manager jobs, which is a bold and refreshing take, especially with a lot of doom and gloom. So let's start to unpack that. What inspired you to write that post in the first place?
I think it was partly what I've seen in Alice and partly what I saw in previous companies. And the typical ratio that I saw in previous companies was maybe 1:6, something like that. Sometimes 1:4, sometimes 1:10. Product manager for that many engineering team, maybe one designer, one QA engineer thrown in. And what I realize is the way we're working now, you give an engineer a spec, even though they might have been really fast pre-AI. I mean, now it's crazy. The velocity at which software can be delivered is insane, right? And so, but one of the concerns then is if you don't have very good specs, you'll deliver a lot of crappy software, right? You'll just deliver a lot of hacky features which don't have holistic thought applied to them. And I'm not saying every engineer needs a product manager. That's not true. But I do think the combo of a business person and a technical person is great, right? And you're dividing up the work of what it takes to build something. One person is talking to customers, looking at the metrics, looking at the impact. The other person is building the technology. And so I think the two of them can now deliver a lot, and let's add a designer in the mix, can deliver a lot versus what was possible before. Because what was possible before? You'll have, a sprint meeting, I don't know, every week or every 2 weeks. Some companies even do them once a month. And then you'll go away. You'll do your own research and tinkering in the meantime. You'll come back. And then, like, after a couple of weeks, some work is ready to be delivered, right? And now the speed is insane. And so you kind of need both parties just working hand in hand.
Let's explore a few different things. So, like, what does it mean for product managers in terms of skills they need to bring, how they need to show up? Any changes there?
Oh, yeah. I think exactly right. Because if the team is able to move so fast, then now the business part of the team also needs to move fast. And so that luxury of having, weeks to decide what to build. I mean, you still have that, but then I don't think you have it for everything, for every feature or for every requirement of the business, right? So I think you have to become better at extracting data. You have to become self-sufficient. And just very tactically speaking, I think product managers should know enough SQL to put into ChatGPT or Claude, whatever tools they use, to really extract information from databases, right? Or if you're using some other tools like Google Analytics or amplitude or something like that. You yourself need to master those tools to extract the data that you need to extract. If you're going to depend on a BI team, a data analysis team, an ETL team, I mean, you'll basically have engineers just sitting for 3-4 days while you try to figure things out. So I think you just need to become really fast. And so those things, about being KPI driven, talking to customers, quickly designing stuff, turning on a dime. I think those tactically they become important now, right? Gone is the day of writing, like how Amazon writers famously has what 6-7 page PR FAQs, right? I'm quite sure, and I know because I have a few friends at Amazon. A lot of them are now being written by AI, and then they're also being read by AI on both sides. So I'm like, just become faster. Why don't you just put down bullet points, simple language, and so that the other side can also just read those bullet points, simple language.
So how do we hire, structure, and support these product managers through this shift?
I think part of the coaching has to be, okay, the strategic part of business. I think fundamentally that still stays, right? How you do strategy, how you think about the long term, how you think about business models and so on. I think that stays. And that has probably stayed consistent over years and years of companies being built. But what is changing is the tactics. So I think a lot of tactical education has to now happen, like I said, around extracting data, but also actually becoming a lot more technical. So you should know how a design team is working in Figma, how they're able to move the designs, like say from a Figma to code. And maybe there is something that you can do yourself as well. I mean, now with so many coding tools available, um, like if you need, say, to massage certain data, to see certain patterns, to extract certain value, maybe you just need a script and you don't need an engineer to spend a day figuring it out because you'll spend half the day telling them what you need, another half the day just iterating on changes and so on. But instead, if you were able to learn yourself some of these things, you might just solve the problem yourself. And that doesn't mean you need to install an IDE. It doesn't mean you need to become a coder. It just means most product managers are good product managers, are already a little technical. It just means become a bit more technical.
It seems technical and like a super user of AI in some sense.
Yeah, exactly. I don't mean I don't think you need to learn how to read code or write code, but you need to know how to talk to AI that does that for you.
I do want to address this point that a lot of product managers who've been product managers for a while, they're feeling a little anxious, nervous about being left behind by AI emerging. What would be your advice to them?
Look, it's an exciting time, for sure. It's like the discovery of fire or something like that, right? It's pretty crazy what's happening right now. ChatGPT, fastest growing software ever. Even people who I know are not very technical people, not adopters of technology, even they've been using ChatGPT for months. So it is everywhere, right? And ChatGPT is one example. Now it's showing up in Google. There's Perplexity, there's Claude, all these things, right? It's everywhere. So I think, like it or not, anxious or not, this is happening, right? It is. So I think product manager or engineer or anyone, you have to accept that, yes, this is happening. And your career and probably your next generation's career is going to be very different from the careers we saw, right? Or the careers that have been so far. And so what I would encourage is yeah, actually go and learn stuff, become a super user of AI, like you said, so that you bring a lot of value to the company where you work, I mean, whether it's a job or a company that you start, so that you can move fast, so that you can just deliver actual commercial value.
The thing I took away from that was acceptance. It's like accept things are changing and just act towards it rather than feeling nervous and sort of like getting behind because of that.
Yeah, or worst case scenario, just burying your head in the sand, right, and continuing to do things the old way. It's just things are going to change whether you like them or not. It's happening.
As we come towards the end, I want to like wrap up with a lightning round. Just say what comes to mind. Don't overthink it. Sort of one sentence questions. What's the most underappreciated skill in product managers today?
The amount of crap that they have to take from so many different parties. I think they are very good at dealing with it. From senior executives all the way to everybody else complaining and whining to them.
What would be an interview question you would ask every product management candidate?
Oh, when was the last time you spoke with a customer? And then, of course, you dig deeper. What did you talk about? How did you do it? How did you schedule the call? All those things.
Then what's a belief about product that you've completely changed your mind on?
I used to think that maybe you only need business analysis or like something very basic. And then I've learned along the way that no, of course, like it's a much more involved skill. But I also realized something along the way, actually. There are a lot of just like in every field, there are a lot of average PMs who are maybe more like project managers. A really great PM can just really change a company.
What's one thing product managers get wrong about working with engineering?
When engineers, maybe around timelines and difficulties. I once had a product leader who said that, why is this going to take so long? Isn't it just like some HTML that you have to put together? I was like, are you crazy? Like, that's not how it works, You have to think about like so many different things. Anyway, so I think that's thankfully it's not something I've heard often, but I do see that there is a general clash around timings of deliverables and not understanding why things take as much time as they take.
What's the most interesting AI use case you've seen recently?
I've seen like AI is somehow able to. I still need to prove that it actually works. So I haven't seen it work, but I've seen it talked about. That an AI agent can scan the internet, find a whole bunch of leads for you, automatically figure out what to email them, and then actually email them, and then they will respond, and then further respond to the response and schedule a meeting. I mean, that's crazy. That's like a lot of things that an AI agent is supposedly doing. So I've heard about it enough. It feels like, yes, it is true. I just haven't seen it in action. So I'm really curious to figure that out.
And then last but not least, how do people get to learn more from you and follow you?
I don't post a lot. And honestly, this has been great, like to be here and chat with you. It's also a chance for me to like reflect on some things. So, but I usually, when I do post, I'm posting on LinkedIn. I have a presence on X, but not as much. So mostly on LinkedIn. My handle is Karan MG, pretty much everywhere.
Karan, I learned a lot. This was packed with insight. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, your experience, your forward-thinking take on how product leadership is evolving in the AI-first world. And also, like, tell us more how people can learn more and try out Alice.ai.
Yeah, of course. Look, I'm going to tell you, if you're trying to get feedback from your customers, you really got to just actually hear what they have in mind. So we've created a very easy, fantastic tool for you to use. Just go to vbx.to, so VoiceBox. So vbx.to, it's the simplest link. Sign up. I have a team. We'll help you get started. We'll onboard you and everything. It's just a bunch of companies are using it now. For Alice, head to aliceapp.ai. I mean, it's all one and the same company. And for me, like I said, yeah, just find me on LinkedIn, hit me up. Easy to get connected.
Karan, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time for this podcast. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate it too. I think, Shobhit, it's great that, we've been connected, and I think your podcast is great, and I think people get a lot of value from it. So thanks for having me on.
And then for all the listeners, if you're a product manager looking to step up as a strategic leader, you know where to find us. Intentional Product Manager. Let's build your career, your influence, your impact. And hey, last thing I would ask of you, just make sure you leave a review and share this podcast with others. Like, it lights up my day whenever I see someone share their experience of this. So whatever platform you're listening in, whether it's YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anything you're using, please do leave us a review. Thank you and see you next time. Hey, be sure to check out our website at intentionalproductmanager.com to see how you can level up in your career.